Alright, imagine it's 1992. On one side, you've got Guns N' Roses, the biggest rock band on the planet, selling millions of albums, selling out stadiums. Axl Rose is practically untouchable. On the other side, a scruffy guy from Seattle wearing thrift store clothing that looked like he slept in them. That guy, Kurt Cobain. And somehow, that scruffy guy is about to change rock music forever. This wasn't just a feud. This wasn't just two musicians taking shots at each other. This was the king of the 1980s colliding headfirst with the guy who was about to define the 90s. And holy shit, these two could not stand each other. The funny thing is, Axl Rose and Kurt Cobain were both rock stars, but that's where the similarities ended. Axl loved the spectacle, the giant stage shows, the larger-than-life rock star image. Kurt, he thought most of that stuff was complete bullshit. Kurt came from the underground scene, punk rock, do-it-yourself culture. The whole point was rejecting the machine. Meanwhile, Axl practically was the machine, at least from Kurt's perspective. It was like watching oil and water try to become friends. It's not happening. Now here's where things get interesting, because the feud didn't just appear out of thin air. The seeds were planted years earlier. Back in 1988, Guns N' Roses released GNR Lies. Most people remember that album for Patience, but the final track, that was a different story. The song was called One in a Million.
You're one in a million. Yeah, that's what you are.
And almost immediately, it became one of the most controversial songs of the late 1980s. The lyrics sparked outrage. Critics attacked it. Fans argued about it. Journalists wouldn't stop talking about it. And one young musician paying close attention was Kurt Cobain.
Come as you are.
Cobain openly disliked the song and what he felt it represented. To Kurt, the track wasn't just controversial. It symbolized a lot of what he hated about rock music during the late 1980s. The swagger, the arrogance, the attitude that anything could be excused because someone was a rock star. And while Kurt wasn't yet a household name, he remembered. Years later, when Nirvana exploded and suddenly found themselves sharing the spotlight with Guns N' Roses, those old feelings hadn't exactly disappeared. In fact, they were about to get a whole lot louder. Things started heating up when Kurt publicly criticized Guns N' Roses, specifically Axl. Cobain didn't like some of Axl's public comments. He didn't like some of the controversies surrounding Guns N' Roses, and he definitely didn't like being lumped into some category as the arena rock world that Nirvana was replacing. Then Axl fired back, and let's just say Axl Rose was never really exactly known for turning the other cheek. When Axl felt attacked, he attacked back, usually with interest. Then came one of the biggest insults, at least from Axl's perspective. Guns N' Roses wanted Nirvana to join them on tour. Think about that. One of the biggest bands in the world inviting the hottest new band in America. For most groups, that would have been a dream. Nirvana wasn't interested. Not only did they decline, they weren't exactly polite about it. Kurt wasn't shy about making it clear that he wasn't a fan of Guns N' Roses. And Axl, he took that personally, very personally. Then things got even messier because now Courtney Love got involved. And if you know anything about Courtney Love, you know she has never been afraid of conflict, ever. Reports circulated that Axl made comments about Courtney and Kurt's relationship.
I heard there was some tension, I gather, from what was said on stage between Nirvana and Guns N' Roses tonight. What was going on? I think you were back there.
Yeah, Axl in Florida apparently said something about Kurt and Courtney, something derogatory about Kurt and Courtney.
Courtney fired back. Kurt backed Courtney. Axl backed Axl. And suddenly, this wasn't just a musician feud. It was turning into a full-blown rock and roll soap opera. The kind where everybody's yelling and nobody remembers how the argument started. Then came the moment everybody remembers, the MTV Video Music Awards, September 1992, and somehow both camps ended up in the same building. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. According to multiple accounts, there was a backstage confrontation. Courtney allegedly jokingly asked Axl if he would be the godfather to their baby. Not exactly the smartest way to calm tensions. Axl wasn't amused. Words were exchanged, threats were reportedly exchanged, tempers exploded, everybody got pissed, and just like that, one of rock's biggest feuds had gone from magazine interviews to face-to-face hostility. But hold up, we're not done, because later that night, Kurt decided to add one more chapter. According to accounts from the event, Cobain spat on the piano backstage, apparently believing it belonged to Axl Rose. However, one small problem. It wasn't Axl's piano, it belonged to Elton John. Oops. Imagine being Elton John. You wake up one morning and discover you've somehow become collateral damage in a war you weren't even fighting. That's rock and roll for you. Here's the interesting part. This feud wasn't actually about one argument, or one comment, or one interview. It was bigger than that. Axl represented the old guard, the final giant rock star era. Big hair, big stages, big egos, big everything. Kurt represented something completely different, authenticity and anti-rock star attitudes. The early 1990s was changing, and Kurt Cobain was the face of that change, whether he wanted the job or not. So when these two fought, people saw more than two musicians arguing. They saw two eras colliding. By 1993, the public hostility had started cooling off, not because they suddenly became friends. Far from it. The constant back and forth simply wasn't dominating headlines anymore. Both men had bigger issues to deal with. Nirvana was under enormous pressure. Guns N' Roses was struggling with eternal problems. Life moved on, at least for a little while. Then came April 1994. Kurt Cobain died at the age of 27. And just like that, the feud ended. Not with a handshake, not with some dramatic final conversation. It just stopped. Years later, surviving members of both camps would speak more respectfully about each other. Time has a way of doing that. Looking back now, it's hard not to see the whole thing as a collision course. Two massive personalities. Two completely different versions of rock music. Two men who represented entirely different generations. And for a brief moment, they were on top of the world at exactly the same time. The result? One of the most fascinating feuds in rock history. And honestly, if social media had existed back then, this thing would have been an absolute dumpster fire.